All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Bruce from the Epic Experiment and Garbage or Great, and tonight we are talking another deckTech. So another week, another deckTech. This is another one of the pre-constructed lists that I have taken and tweaked to my own interests. So this is from the Lord of the Rings. I have Sam, Loyal Attendant, and Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit. So this is an Abzan colored deck that hinges on food. So let's read about this. So Frodo is a black and a white for a 1/3 legendary creature, Halfling Scout. Partner with Sam, Loyal Attendant, with Vigilance. Whenever Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit attacks, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, the ring tempts you. Then if Frodo is your ring bearer and the ring has tempted you 2 or more times this game, draw a card. So Frodo becomes quasi-unblockable because one of the methods that the ring has is one of the first ones that can't be blocked by creatures with power greater than it. And then additionally, you have the mode of once you've been tempted twice by the ring, it becomes a card draw engine. So you want to gain a little bit of life to trigger it, but fortunately, there's lots of ways to gain life because Sam helps you fix that right on it. So 1 green white for a 2/4 legendary creature, Halfling Peasant, and then partner with Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a food token. So there it is right there. And activate abilities of foods you control cost 1 less to activate. So for a single mana, you can sacrifice the foods you get each turn with Sam to trigger Frodo so you can then attack. Cool. That's a lot of fun. So everything in this deck is hinged around food. Now, what I have done, so down here are the new additions, the cards down here that I have gone and added to the list. Let's talk about the original cards that I've kept that are still in the list that haven't come out. Let's start with our ramp package, because that's always where we start. We start with the Sol Ring. Sol Ring's good. I like the Sol Ring here with Sauron. Looks good. We have Commander Sphere. Cool. We have a Farseek. I love Farseek. Farseek's a great card. We have an Arcane Signet. We have a Cultivate. And we have a Pristine Talisman, which is the only one that's a little bit weird, but even then that's not that crazy considering we were a life gain deck. 3 for a tap to add a colorless, you gain 1 life. All right, that's as far as a ramp package goes. Is pretty typical as you're going to encounter. All right, our interaction package is also pretty straightforward. So we've got a Fumigate on the Lord of the Rings art, which is super nice. I like that. Dusk to Dawn, which I also think is super cool. I like that art on it. Anguish Unmaking. This is like my favorite art on this particular card. I very clearly need to get this in a full art variant because it's beautiful. Mortify. Okay, cool. Good card. Swords to Plowshares. Fell the Mighty. Destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. So you target Frodo and then you blow up all the rest of them. Seems good to me. We have a Toxic Deluge. This was in a Precon and this was crazy. Now it happens all the time. Go for the Throat, and we have a Path to Exile, which again, all of those cards are pretty typical fare that we would encounter in a commander deck. So nothing there so far has gone, deviates from the norm particularly. Let's have a look at some of these other value packages that we've got here before we get going. Revive the Shire, 1 in a green, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, create a food. So we start making foods. Sanguine Bond, which is super spicy to have. 3 black, an enchantment. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So this is one half of an infinite combo. I don't have the other half of the infinite combo. The other half is Exquisite Blood, but Sanguine Bond is in the list, came in the Precon. Of Herbs and Stewed Rabbits, 2 and a white, so it's a saga. Chapter 1, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. You create a food token. Draw a card, create a food. Chapter 3, create a 1/1 white halfling creature token for each food you control. So this could make quite a number of halflings. And then we have a Harmonize. So 2 green, draw 3 cards. Nothing here at this point has been particularly crazy. We haven't seen that much food get created, but it's there. There's quite a bit of it. Let's talk about what was in the deck in terms of creatures that we have. All right, so we have a Mentor of the Meek. So Mentor of the Meek, handy little card draw engine, 2 and a white for a 2/2. Human Soldier. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you pay 1. If you do, draw a card. This is perfect for triggering off halflings because you're going to be able to get it pretty regularly. Prosperous Innkeeper, 1 and a green for a 1/1 halfling citizen. When Prosperous Innkeeper enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. So now we're into the life gain component, and you can very quickly gain a bunch of life to trigger Frodo, even if you don't sack food tokens. Okay. Treebeard, Gracious Host, 2 white-green for a 0/5 legendary creature Treefolk with Trample and Ward. When Treebeard, Gracious Host enters the battlefield, create 2 food. When you gain life, put that many +1/+1 counters on target Halfling or Treefolk. So you can put the counters on Treebeard if you want, or on a Halfling if you please. Lobelia, Defender of Bag End, 2 and a black, 2/2 legendary creature Halfling Citizen. When Lobelia enters the battlefield, look at the top card of each opponent's library and exile those cards face down. Tap, sacrifice an artifact, choose one. Until your end of turn, you may play a card, exile Lobelia without paying its mana cost. Or each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So I've never activated this one for the lose 2, draw gain 2, but I have used it to try and play things off the top of my opponent's library. It is surprisingly fun, and you'll have lots of food tokens. Pippin, Warden of Isengard, a black and a green for a 2/2 legendary creature Halfling Advisor. When Mary, Warden of Isengard, partner with Mary, 1 at top, create a food token. Tap, sacrifice 4 foods. Other creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain haste until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So they're going to get like an overrun effect with Pippin. Okay, Motivated Pony, 5 and a green for a 3/3 creature horse with trample and haste. When a Motivated Pony attacks, attacking creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn. If a food enters the battlefield under your control this turn, untap those creatures and they get an additional +2/+2 until end of turn. So, Motivated Pony, if you can make a food token, your things are going to get +3/+3. That seems pretty strong and turns Motivated Pony into a bit of a bomb. Savvy Hunter, 1 black green for a 3/3 creature human warrior. Whenever Savvy Hunter attacks or blocks, create a food, sacrifice 2 foods, draw a card. So this is a bit of a card draw engine here, but additionally to that, it is just I like the reprint art on it. It's pretty cool. The Gaffer, 2 and a white for a 2/3 legendary creature Halfling Peasant. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, draw a card. All right, so more card draw. Guahir, Greatest of the Eagles, 4 and a white for a 5/5 legendary creature Bird Noble with flying. When Guahir attacks, target attacking creature gains flying until end of turn. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, create a 3/3 white bird creature token with flying, and when this creature attacks, target attacking creature gains flying until end of turn. So if you can trigger the make a 3/3 every turn because you have enough food tokens lying around, Guahir gets pretty powerful. Banquet Guests, X and then green and a white for a 0/0 creature Halfling Citizen with affinity for food. Trample, Banquet Guests enters the battlefield with twice X +1/+1 counters on it. 2, sacrifice a food, Banquet Guest gains indestructible until end of turn. So you could potentially make Banquet Guest really big and then make it indestructible. Yes, please. Farmer Cotton, X, green, white for a 1/1 legendary creature Halfling Peasant. When Farmer Cotton enters the battlefield, create X 1/1 white Halfling creature tokens and X food tokens. So you're going to make a bunch of food, a bunch of Halflings, and kind of go crazy and then gain life. With Essence Warden here. Essence Warden says whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. That's on your side or on your opponent's side, making it good. We have a Birds of Paradise. All right. We have Mary, Warden of Isengard. So 1 green, white for a 1/4 legendary creature Halfling Advisor with partner for Pippin. Whenever 1 or more artifacts enter the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. This ability triggers only once each turn. The fact that it triggers once each turn is disappointing, but you're going to make enough food tokens that you're going to be able to trigger Mary pretty readily. Prize Pig, so 1 and a green for a 0/3. This was quite a confusing piece of text. All right, it's a boar. Whenever you gain life, you may put that many ribbon counters on Prize Pig. Then, if there are 3 or more ribbon counters on Prize Pig, remove one of those counters and untap it. And you can tap to add 1 mana of any color. So, the reason this is tricky to utilize is because it picks up the counters and loses them regardless of whether you use the mana or not. So it's just a little bit tricky. So anyway, Gilded Goose. This is a reprint, single green for a 0/2 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, you create a food. 1 and a green, tap, create a food, sacrifice a food, and tap it, add 1 mana of any color. So this can act like a Birds of Paradise. And since you are going to probably have food tokens lying around, it could be pretty good. Rapacious Guest. 2 and a black for a 2/2 with menace. It's a halfling citizen. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a food token. Whenever you sacrifice a food, put a +1/+1 counter on Rapacious Guest. When Rapacious Guest leaves the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to its power. Okay. And then Rosie Cotton of South Lane. So 2 and a white for a 1/1 with legendary creature Halfling Peasant. When Rosie Cotton of the South Lane enters the battlefield, create a food token. Whenever you create a token, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie. So Rosie's going to make all your things be very, very big because of the fact you're going to be putting extra food tokens into play and then putting counters on things. Let's talk about the cards that I've added to this list, and I've added quite a number. All right, so first one from the same set but different. Instead of being the commander product and the regular product, Smeagol Helpful Guide. 1 black green for a 4/2 legendary creature halfling horror. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, the ring tempts you. Whenever the ring tempts you, target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped, under your control, and the rest into their graveyard. So this is a way to steal things off the top of your opponent's deck. Love it. Big fan of it. Jaheira, Friend of the Forest. 2 and a green for a 2/3. Legendary creature, human, elf, druid. Tokens you control have tapped to add a green. So any food tokens can be tapped to add green mana. Cosmo Elixir, 4 for an artifact. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. Otherwise, you gain 2 life. Well, considering Frodo really cares about life gain, Cosmo Elixir seems good. Knight of Sweet's Revenge, 3 and a green enchantment. When Knight of Sweet's Revenge enters the battlefield, create a food. Foods you control have tapped to add a green. 5 green, sacrifice Knight of Sweet's Revenge. Creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X the number of foods you control. Activate only as a sorcery. So you're going to make a bunch of foods, tap them for green to power out your deck, and then when you're done, you're going to use it to overrun. Samwise Gamgee, so green and a white for a 2/2 legendary creature Halfling Peasant. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a food token. Sacrifice 3 foods. Return target historic card from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty cool. We have a Sweet Tooth Witch, 2 and a black for a 3/2. When Sweet Tooth Witch enters the battlefield, create a food token. 2, sacrifice a food. Target player loses 2 life. So with enough food tokens, you have some burn. You can reach out and end their game. All right, Tyler's Provisioner, 2 and a green for a 3/2 with landfall. It's an Elf Scout. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a food token or a treasure token. So you're usually picking food. You might pick treasure, but you're usually probably picking food. Fangren Marauder. This is actually a really exciting conclusion to this list. So 5 and a green for a 5/5 creature beast. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may gain 5 life. So when you sack your food token, it's going to go to the graveyard. Fangren Marauder is going to see it, and then you're going to pick up 5 more life. So every food token represents 8 life with Fangren Marauder there. It won't take you long to push it way out of control. Camellia the Seed Miser, 1 black-green for a 3/3 legendary creature Squirrel Warlock with Menace. Other squirrels you control have Menace. Whenever you sacrifice 1 or more foods, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. 2, forage, put a +1/+1 counter on each other squirrel you control. Okay, that seems like a lot of text from Bloomborough. It seems good. Feasting Troll King, so 2 green for a 7/6 with Vigilance and Trample. When Feasting Troll King enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, create 3 food tokens. Sacrifice 3 foods. Create Feasting Troll King from the graveyard. Return Feasting Troll King from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only during your turn. All right. Since you're going to have a bunch of other foods, Feasting Troll King is going to come back fairly readily. Bristlebud Farmer, 2 green for a 5/5 plant druid trample. When Bristlebud Farmer enters the battlefield, create 2 food tokens. Whenever Bristlebud Farmer attacks, you may sacrifice a food. If you do, mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among them in your hand. So this is going to give you a little bit of food card selection on it, which seems pretty good. We have Guillaume, Master Chef. So Guillaume is 2 black-green for a 5/3 legendary creature with Troll Warlock with Trample. At the beginning of your end step, create a number of food tokens equal to the number of non-token creatures you had enter the battlefield under your control this turn. And 1, sacrifice a food. Target creature gains indestructible till end of turn. Ah, yes. Here's a land. We have the Shire. So this comes into play. Tap unless you control a legendary creature. Taps for a green. One in a green. Tap an untapped creature. Create a food. Okay. Trail of Crumbs. So 1 and a green for an enchantment. When Trail of Crumbs enters the battlefield, create a food. When you sacrifice a food, you may pay 1. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. So again, this is going to allow us to filter through our deck and find the things we want. Marionette Master. 4 black for a 1/3 human artificer with Fabricate 3. Meaning, it can come into play with 3 plus almost counters on it and make it a 4/6. Or you can make 3 servo tokens. Whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So that is a really great strategy to sack your food tokens, and if Marionette Master is a 4/6, maybe even bigger, you're going to be able to deal damage to your opponent directly in the head. Elvish Archivist. So 1 and a green for a 0/1 Elf Artificer. Whenever one or more artifacts enter the battlefield under your control, put a 2 plus almost 1 counters on Elvish Archivist. This ability triggers only once each turn. And whenever one or more enchantment enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. All right, so just getting generally bigger when you play tokens is good. Tough Cookie is great. So 1 and a blue for a 2/2. Sorry, 1 and a green for a 2/2. Makes a food as it enters. 2 and a green. Target creature, non-creature artifact you control becomes a 4/4. And then 2 and tap. Sacrifice Tough Cookie. You gain 2 life. I really want this to make my foods into 4/4s that I can attack with. Seems good to me. We have Sorin. This is the flip Sorin, and we'll see it all about our Sorin here. Sorin of House Markov. So 1 and a black for a 1/4 legendary creature, human noble. Lifelink, extort. So the extort reminder text is whenever you cast a spell, you can play a white or a black to drain each opponent for 1, and you gain that much life. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, exile Sorin of House Markov. Then return him to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. So you're going to, like, 1 food token triggers this and turns this into the Planeswalker on the other side. So it's got Extort as a static ability for 3 loyalty. +2 create a food, -1. Sorin Ravenous Neonate deals damage equal to its power, equal to the amount of life you gain this turn to any target. And then -6, gain control of target creature. It becomes a vampire. In addition to its other types, put a lifelink counter on it if you control a white permanent other than that creature, this creature or Sorin. All right, very useful card. Seems just mostly synergistic. Marionette Apprentice, similar effect to the Marionette Master, except a little smaller. 1 and a black for a 1/2 with Fabricate 1. And then whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. Scavenger's Talent, so a single black. It is first mode. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control die, create a food token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Pay 2, so a black and 1. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, target player mills 2 cards. 2 and a black. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice 3 other non-land permanents. If you do, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Seems good to me. Handy. Academy Manufacturer, and then Greta, which are also very good. So this is going to make extra tokens. Whenever you make a food, you also make a clue and a treasure. And Greta is pretty good. You can use it to put counters on things or to draw cards. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about the infinite combo that's lurking around in this list. So, if you have these cards, you have a way to do all sorts of crazy things. So, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus additional food token are created instead. Sacrifice 3 foods to draw a card. That's Peregrine Took. Experimental Confectioner, 2 and a black for a 2/3. When Experimental Confectioner enters the battlefield, create a food. Whenever you sacrifice a food, create a 1/1 black rat creature token with this creature can't block. And then Mirkwood Bats, 3 and a black. Whenever flying, it's a 2/3. Whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. So the way this works is you have 3 food tokens. You sacrifice the food tokens to draw a card. Experimental Confectioner is going to see that you sacrifice 3 things, and is going to make you 3 rats. Because you made 3 rats, Peregrine Took is going to make you 3 more food. All the while, Mirkwood Bats is dealing opponents damage. Then when you start sacking the foods again to draw cards, or sack the rats to do something else, who knows what, you're going to find that you can drain your opponents right out, and they have no real way to interact with it unless they kill one of these creatures that are integral to the strategy. All right, so it's kind of a fun, neat combo. It is still very much a 3-card combo. All right, so it's not particularly terrifying. If I were playing and I see if I just see the Mirkwood Bats, I'm not inherently worried. If I see the experimental confectioner, I'm also like not losing my ever-loving mind. But the moment you see Peregrine Took with some of those things, you're going to be paying very close attention. All right, and so that's the list, folks. It is like I said, it's a pre-constructed deck that's got a number of changes that I made to it. Now, in terms of how does the deck play out, so because of the fact that it is a life gain matters deck with lots of food tokens, it tends to be a little bit on the slow side, where it's looking to set up value engines and loops. Not always well, and sometimes you don't draw the right portions of your deck, you struggle to get anything underway. So I would say it is a bracket 2 list. It is, not particularly terrifying. That most decks are going to be able to play it and enjoy the experience. It does have some interaction, but it doesn't deprive you of your mana or of other abilities to play things. It's just a decent deck to sit down and jam with your friends with on a Saturday night. So I kind of like the deck. I don't get to play it very readily, but I probably should make a point of playing it more often because I think it is pretty cool. All right, the the deck list is down below in the description. You're totally welcome to go check it out. In fact, I encourage you to do so. All of our other deck lists are also there on their Moxfield account. You can see them all there. And that includes brawl lists, that commander lists, that's any lists I've got kicking around that I've made up for the channel. All right. Please like and subscribe. That helps us grow the channel and get us closer to 100. I've got a giveaway set to go with last week's deck of Abigail. That is a pretty spicy brew. But you got to get to 100 subscribers here on YouTube or 800 on Instagram. Either one would trigger it. And of course, by all means, follow us on social media. The link is down below in the description, as is the link to the podcast. And you can hear us talk about all manners of magic. All right. But that is all for me tonight. This is Frodo and Sam, my Abzan colored halfling deck. And with that, I will bid you all adieu, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks very much. Catch you later. Bye.